Welcome back to the Explainer, everyone! Today, we aren't just looking at a list of new facts to memorize. Think of this more like a complete operating system upgrade for your brain. You know, most of us consume information just to feel smarter or more informed, but at the end of the day, our actual lives stay exactly the same. But what if a few specific concepts could act as a toolkit to literally rewire your brain? We're talking about changing how you decide, how you reason, and how you suddenly see the things that everyone else is completely missing. So, you have to ask yourself, does what you read change what you think or how you think? It's a massive distinction. Most successful professionals read constantly, but really they're just adding new files to the exact same old hard drive without ever changing their outcomes. They upgrade their speed, sure, but they don't change their engine. Well, today we're going to look at the exact frameworks you need to fundamentally rewire your thinking, straight from the playbooks of top CEOs and billionaires.
Okay, let's just dive right in. Here's our roadmap for this masterclass. First, the 3 gates framework. Second, luck, labor, and randomness. Third, escaping the proficiency prison. Fourth, thinking in bets. Fifth, the intelligence trap. And finally, embracing the beginner's mind. No fluff, just a clear path to installing the mental models that'll elevate you to the top 1%.
Starting things off with Section 1, the 3 gates framework. Before we can even upgrade our minds, we need a ruthless filtering mechanism to identify the rare ideas that actually matter. Before you commit hours to a new book or a new concept, run it through these 3 gates. Step 1 is the operator. Does this actually install new mental moves, or is it just feeding you facts? Step 2 is the challenger. Does it make you uncomfortable? Look, a truly transformative idea has to dismantle your certainty. If you're just sitting there feeling validated, you literally haven't learned anything new. And step 3 is the fire alarm. Does this idea stop you from doing dumb things with total confidence? It has to prevent expensive mistakes. If a concept passes these 3 gates, then yeah, it's worthy of your inner operating system.
Which builds perfectly into our first major firmware update. Section 2, luck, labor, and randomness. Heavily inspired by Nassim Taleb's work, we have to ask, are our business heroes actually visionaries, or do they just win the lottery? To explain that number on your screen, 312, let me tell you a rather chilling story. Picture this. You invite 10,000 Wall Street traders to a massive stadium. Every single year, they flip a coin. Heads, they double their money. Tails, they go bust and get sent home. After year 1, 5,000 are left. If you keep doing this for 5 straight years, exactly 312 of those traders will be left in the stadium having won all 5 coin flips. Now, these 312 people, they'll be put on the cover of Forbes, they'll sell you expensive trading courses, they'll launch huge YouTube channels. But are they masters of the market? No way. They're a mathematical certainty. They didn't beat the system, they were produced by it. You simply cannot distinguish a master from a lucky idiot just by looking at their track record.
And this brings us right to survivorship bias. It's when we confuse a circumstantial tailwind with our own exceptional talent. The source material shares this incredible anecdote about an AI company CEO. His firm was growing at lightning speed, packed with amazing talent. But he had the self-awareness to realize their massive success was heavily driven by a totally random, once-in-a-decade tailwind, a massive internet bot threat that created an existential crisis for their clients. They were just the right company at exactly the right time. Without that random luck, all their visionary strategies would have just been a forgotten footnote.
To level this up, let's bring in Daniel Kahneman's brilliant concept of System 1 versus System 2 thinking. This shows exactly how our brain's wiring actively plays tricks on us with randomness. System 1 is our fast, impulsive brain. It's the part that immediately jumps to conclusions and assumes a successful CEO is inherently a genius. System 2, on the other hand, is the slow, deliberate reasoning that we actually have to force ourselves to switch on to avoid making those confident mistakes.
So how do we make this actionable? Try the luck versus labor audit. Every Friday, sit down and sort your wins into 2 columns. Column A is labor, stuff you actually controlled. Column B is luck, timing, random introductions, tailwinds. If your column B is completely empty, well, your ego is in the driver's seat and you're heading straight for a crash. Also, take what they call a wreckage tour. Stop only studying the survivors. Go find the people who made your exact same bet but failed and study them. Because if your master plan only works in a perfect economy, actually scratch that, it's not a plan at all, it's a prayer.
All right, moving on to Section 3. Escaping the proficiency prison.
This is our second major upgrade, and it tackles a genuinely terrifying phenomenon. The smarter and more successful you become, the harder it is to change your mind. Just look at the contrast between these companies. On the left, you've got those trapped by proficiency. Kodak literally invented digital photography, but they buried it because they wanted to protect their lucrative film business. Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix for just $50 million and laugh them out of the room. They weren't stupid, they were just trapped protecting yesterday's wins. On the right, look at the ones who escaped. Intel spent decades fiercely protecting their computer chip market, completely missing the GPU revolution. Meanwhile, NVIDIA escaped the prison, pivoted, and built a $4 trillion ecosystem. This is Clayton Christensen's innovator's dilemma playing out in real time. In fact, Adam Grant's work shows that when tax rules change, seasoned tax experts actually fail 3 times more often than junior students. It's crazy, right? The more you know, the less you see.
Whenever we don't want to change our thinking, we instinctively reach for one of 3 masks. The preacher, who defends their beliefs like absolute scripture. The prosecutor, who defends their beliefs by aggressively attacking the flaws in everybody else. And the politician, who just panders and tells the room exactly what it wants to hear. We absolutely have to drop all 3 of these. Instead, we need to adopt the scientist mode. Treat your beliefs as hypotheses, things that can and should be updated when new data rolls in. You have to be able to say, I currently believe X, but I'll admit I'm wrong if Y happens.
And that mindset elegantly brings us to the startup mode test. Ask yourself, if you had $1 million and all the technology in the world, what would you build to take down your own company? True leaders actively map out their own destruction. They hunt for their vulnerabilities. If you're just defending the status quo, you're acting like a priest, not a scientist. Remember, the scientist is never truly certain, and the priest is never curious.
And next up, Section 4, Thinking in Bets.
This framework comes from world-class poker player Annie Duke, and it flips your perspective so you start treating every career move or business pivot as a calculated gamble. Imagine facing a 30% chance of complete failure versus a 70% chance of success. The source material shares this awesome personal story of a guy moving from Mumbai to Boston for a graduate program at MIT. Now, MIT only gave him a conditional scholarship. He had to teach undergrad math and survive the first semester, or he'd have to pay the whole tuition completely out of pocket. If he failed, he had absolutely zero way to pay for it. But by mapping out his strengths, his weaknesses, and everything that could possibly go sideways, he calculated his odds. He figured there was roughly a 30% chance of failure. He accepted that calculated risk, bought a one-way ticket, and went for it. That wasn't blind bravery, guys. That was analyzing odds and managing risk. Focus on doing that, increasing your odds every single day.
Taking this a step further, let's look at Philip Tetlock's research on super forecasters. The most incredibly accurate people on the planet do not think in black and white, yes or no terms. They think purely in probabilities. And here is the real secret sauce. They update those odds the second new data hits the wire. They aren't trying to be right all the time. They're simply trying to be slightly less wrong after every single iteration.
So here's a concrete drill you can start using literally today to quiet your emotions and sharpen your strategy. For the next 30 days, before making any major decision, write down these 3 things in a journal. 1, your confidence level, from 0 to 100%. 2, what you definitively know, what you don't know, and what specific evidence would change your mind. And 3, force yourself to write down 3 reasons why you could be totally 100% wrong. Keep track of this. When you start thinking in bets, you stop emotionally reacting, and you start objectively revising. All right, that brings us to Section 5, the intelligence trap. Based on David Robson's research, this is honestly maybe the most dangerous concept in this entire explainer. The very real threat that your own high intellect can become your absolute worst enemy. There is a really profound truth in this statement. Most people hit a wall and question themselves. Smart people hit a wall and question the wall. Highly intelligent people have this very unique failure mode because they are so smart, they can rationalize anything. They basically become their own brilliant defense attorneys. There's a story of a young, super smart MIT grad who was the head of marketing for a massive global company. When a new president took over, instead of promoting this whiz kid, they hired an SVP right above him. Why? Because the young grad had completely trapped himself in his own narrative of competence. When things went wrong, he rationalized his flaws instead of just asking dumb, clarifying questions early on. To break out of this cycle of self-justification, you need to run 2 specific drills. Step 1, find an anti-mentor. Before a massive decision, grab someone whose judgment you deeply trust and ask them to argue the exact opposite case. Give them permission to aggressively try and kill your plan on paper. Step 2, the empty cup. Before your next high-stakes meeting, force yourself to write down 3 naive, incredibly basic questions that you'd normally be way too embarrassed to ask, and then ask them anyway.
And finally, we arrive at Section 6, Embracing the Beginner's Mind. This is the ultimate philosophical attitude required to make all of these mental models actually work. It's perfectly captured in the Zen Buddhist concept of shoshin, the beginner's mind. Think of it like this. The expert's cup is completely full, overflowing with certainty, right? Meaning there is absolutely no room for new ideas to pour in. But the beginner's cup is completely empty, perfectly primed for growth and ready to receive.
Consider this beautiful contrast: the adult commuter versus the child in the tunnel. The source tells this touching anecdote about a guy riding a train from New Jersey into New York City. The train goes through this pitch-dark tunnel under the river. Now, to the adult taking that train twice a day, it was just a boring routine, blind, numb, unaffected. But to his 4- and 7-year-old kids riding with them, it was pure shoshin. It was pitch dark outside and they were giggling with pure magic, joy, and sheer wonder. Same exact tunnel, completely different cognitive experience.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. As we grow older, why on earth do we start treating our sense of wonder like it's a weakness? Why do we treat our curiosity like it's a curse or something to be embarrassed about? The ultimate operating system upgrade isn't just stuffing more random facts into your cup. It's about having the courage to empty it. It's about approaching your own intellect with profound curiosity. So my challenge to you is this. As you navigate the complexities of your career and your life, are you going to be the rigid expert who already knows it all?